Mike Brown shot by police in Ferguson, Missouri. Eric Garner killed by police in New York. As a result, demonstrations not only across the United States, but a few here in Canada as well. And now joining me, Charles Ortel in New York. Charles, welcome.
Thanks for having me on.
So I understand you attended one of these protest marches and found that there were people with entirely different agendas sort of hijacking the march. Is that correct?
Yeah, actually, I've attended a couple of them after the first one and then after the second one. And down in Washington Square Park, which is sort of a hotbed over decades of demonstration ardor, I was struck at the most recent one where violence ensued afterwards, how quickly the park filled up, how many people arrived with pre-printed T-shirts, how many stands there were with these grizzled aging hippie types handing out communist literature. I got some of it, making the case not simply decrying police violence, but making the case or trying to build a case that it's the entire capitalist system that is racist and all that. And then they had underneath the arch, they had two people with megaphones, electronic megaphones, whipping the crowd into a frenzy. And I witnessed them shouting out using these microphones, Eric Garner, Michael Brown, burn it down, burn it down. They said that repeatedly, and they whipped the crowd up into a frenzy and then sent everybody up Fifth Avenue yelling and screaming and carrying on.
What were they imploring people to burn down?
Burn down the shopping district. I mean, it was the basic idea here is, I think, that to incite these people into committing acts of violence, and it's not a very sensible approach. I mean, it'd be one thing if you're really trying to remedy actual injustice, that the cops were picking on people of a given race or ethnicity or gender or sexual orientation for no good reason. Then you have a serious problem. It's another thing to basically decide that the system is already broken and needs to be blown up, which is, I think, what the Communist Party in America, and we have one, by the way, wants to do. And, I think that the mainstream press around the world should take a much harder look at what is actually going on here. Yes, there were two tragedies and there'll be more tragedies. But the system itself, the global system, is out of balance. And I think when it does reset, people on the left are going to be quick to try to turn it into an argument against capitalism, which would be the wrong conclusion to reach.
But when you talk about whipping a crowd up to chant a slogan like burn it down, that's very reminiscent of the kind of thing that Al Sharpton did some years ago in two occasions where people did die, and yet Al Sharpton is being put forth by the president of your country as one of the people who can help solve this problem.
Well, my first awareness regarding Al Sharpton was when he began his despicable career upstate New York, falsely getting a young, impressionable woman to make outrageous, and it turns out false accusations that destroyed a man's career and sent, tensions into orbit around the country. I mean, this is a man who has about as much business going into the White House as the various people who jumped over the fence and gotten past security. I mean, he should not be getting one nickel of support from any person who cares about decency and really trying to fight injustice anywhere. He's a despicable thug.
Why is it that, I want to push one of the points that you made here, that I have to hear about this kind of rhetoric, the burn it down stuff that's going on in these protests from you? Why wasn't that in all the newspapers and on all the news reports?
I believe that's a good question, but most of the mainstream media is hostage to these leftist interests. They're prepared to do fact-free analysis, but offsetting that, I've been following a member now of the editorial board of the Wall Street Journal, Jason Riley. He's been making some excellent points, both in a new book and every night on Fox. We do have a serious problem with black-on-black violence inside this country, and it's time to get into the fact that it's about 13% of the population, but 50% of certain types of crimes, 90% of other types of crimes. And, there's a basic breakdown in the family. And it's tough to bring children up, particularly as we saw in the case of Michael Brown, the footage about him. I mean, you get a big 18-year-old kid who's not paying attention in school and can't find a job, gets frustrated. Who's supposed to tell him that he shouldn't be out at 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning going into convenience stores and stealing stuff from people. I mean, we have a fundamental breakdown in this country that needs to be remedied.